All right. So now let's start. Today we are discussing classes and objects, and these are very important concepts in object-oriented programming. As we move forward, if you have some questions, you can raise your hand. So there is a way to raise your hand using Zoom. Let me see. Raise your hand. Where is that? So maybe under participant, I think. No, wait. So I want to be sure that you'll be able to ask your questions if you have some questions. I don't see this option for me, but let me see. Participant, more. So maybe for the main presenter, that option is not there. But you guys, you should have the option to raise your hand. Then I will see that you have some questions. I will let you ask the questions. All right. So, so in this today's session, we want to discuss the concept of objects and classes. Of course, we needed to discuss the basic terminologies. You need to understand what is a class, what is object, and then how do we declare our classes. So we have a number of variables. So we'll be considering the variables which are the member of the class. These are known as instance variables. By the way, we have 3 types of variables. I will let you know before the end of the class. Or even from the material I shared with you, I think we need to consider that as well. We have 3 types of variables. Maybe I can write here, you can see. Let me get some pen. So for variables, we have what we call instance variable. Instance variable. Instance variable. Then we have static variable. Static variable. Also we have what you call local variable. Local variable. So instance variable, those are the variables of the class. When you create a class, you can have a variables for the class. And the static variable can be either instance variable or local variable. The point is, when they're declared, you use the static keyword in their declaration. So then local variable, as in C, these are the variables that you create within a method. So those variables can only be accessed inside the method. So I will share the link among the links I gave you. There is one you can. I hope when I switch the screen, if you see the other screen, you can let me know. Okay, so among these tutorials I gave you, when you look at the table of content here, so we have a time to visit those variables. We need to understand how they are different. So maybe in this one, you can't see those variables. What about here? Yeah, variable types. Like here, you can see. So that's fine. I will come back to this one later on. Let's continue. So we see how you can create object from your class, and how you can use the created objects. So this is the main topics that we can cover. So let's go straight with class. So we define a class as a blueprint, the keyword blueprint or keyword template to create an object. So the meaning here is class represent some objects which have some common properties. That's why we call it a blueprint or template, because within one class you can create so many objects. So look at this simple example. If you look at the student, for example, student as a template, we can use it to define, like in this group we have like 52 students. Every student has a name, has a marks. So you can see those are the properties. So this serves as a blueprint, and using this one we can create a number of students. Each student with a different name and marks, and when we call those methods, we can get different results. So the class will contain the properties. Properties means what? Those are variables. And also we have the methods. Those are the methods. Each object will have those objects and those are properties. And a few examples here. If you look at this example, the class name is a student. And the properties, we have included only two properties. So in this case, the properties are instance variables or class variables. So we have a name and the marks. So every student should have a name and the marks. And we have a methods. We included the two different methods, show details and the calculate marks. You can add more. You can add more properties as well. So when we create a class, we use a keyword class, and after keyword class we put a class name. So we can put a class name, and you can see okay, we haven't talked about the constructors, but we talk about the constructors. So constants and fields, those are the variables. But you know, the constants, the values remain unchanged. But the fields or variables in general, the value can change. Then you have the methods. Oh, what about the constructor? So we discussed also about the constructors in this session. Okay, so so if you look at this simple declaration of the class, it is straightforward. A keyword class and the name of the class, and then you can include what you call the body of the class. So what you want your class to do. So from the opening parenthesis here to the closing parenthesis, you can define a number of things. You can put variables, you can put methods, you can put constructors, all of those stuff. So we'll be discussing. By the way, so we've been discussing about the modifiers, but again, if you can see the way you declare the field, of course we are used to do the type and then name, like int max, for example, int age, something like that. But also you can include access modifier, which is optional here. So access modifiers, I think we know there are 4 types of access modifiers. You can have a public access modifier. You can have a private access modifier. Also you can have a protected access modifier, and you can have also default. So default means what? Like when we don't include it, like here. So like here, just string name, there is no access modifier. So that means you are using it the default. So what does it mean if you have like a default access modifier, public access modifier, all of this stuff? So let me check. I was okay, let me see. Not this one. That's fine. Let's continue. So I want you to have a clear understanding among the difference between access modifiers. I think I've prepared some things more for you. Let me try to find, yes, it's here. So I want every one of you to look at this section here. So when we don't put any access modifier, by default, we are saying we are using default access modifier, and whatever you declare will be visible to the package. So you remember for the package, what I told you the other day was, if you have many classes, you may want to group those classes probably in one folder, so the same way you organize your stuff in your home. So the classes which belongs in the same folder, we make what we call a package. So those classes belong in one package. So if you declare any variable with no access modifier, that means you are going with default modifier. So that variable will be visible for any class within the package. All right. So if you make your variable like a private means what? It's only visible within that class. You can have other classes in the same package, in the same folder. So that variable will not be visible or available to other classes. Only the class within, only the class where the variable it's declared. So what if you make it public? Now you can see it's public to the world. Everybody can access it, can see it. And if you use a protected keyword as a access modifier, this variable will be visible to the package and all subclasses. I mean, it's the classes, subclasses within your program, but also other classes as long as it is in the same package. So maybe I need to put this one in the chat room because it's very important. You need to take some notes of this one. You need to understand the meaning of access modifiers. So let me put it in your chat room. Probably if you want, you can. What is the chat room? So let me. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I needed to. So I will put it in the chat room. You need to understand the meaning of access modifiers. So like here it's a private. So what does it mean? So private means this variable will only be visible within this class. No other class can see this variable. And you can see this edge is public. What does it mean? Any class can see edge, can access edge. So it's going to be visible for everybody. So that's why the meaning, the definition you said, it's going to be visible to the world. And if you remember protected, other classes within the same package, like here I have one package and I have some classes, I have another package with some classes, I have another package with some classes. Yes, just wait a bit. So if I declare like Max as protected in this package, other classes within this package will be able to access this Max. And if the class is declared within other classes, that's where you have the subclasses. Also, those subclasses will be able to see this variable. So we talk about subclasses because when we talk about the concept of inheritance, you have a class like a class A, which has this variable, and you can have a class B, which extend the class A. So what does it mean? So this becomes subclass, and this becomes a superclass. So if you have a protected variable here, it can also be visible here, and also for other classes within the same package. So yes, if you have a question, please ask. So somebody wanted to ask a question, right? So maybe 30 seconds wait. If nobody asks the question, then we continue. So right, I think there's no question. So let's continue. Now let's understand how we declare the constant in the class. So eventually, in C, do you remember how we declare the constant in C? So in Java, we declare a constant using a keyword final. So anything which is declared as a final in Java, it means what? You cannot change it. You cannot change it. So you put also static, because the static keywords protect your variable from the value in your variable from being changed. So if you do static final, anything you declare that will be treated as a constant. So in other words, its value cannot change. So look at this example, class cycle. We have PI 3.14. The value remain unchanged. So we make it final and static. So it's normal as the way we declare other variables, but when we add the static and the final keywords, it makes the value stored in your variable unchangeable, so you cannot change it throughout your program. So it becomes like a constant. So let's look at the method declaration. So you have your class, which is a product, even variables, price and the name. And you have two methods. One method is to calculate the price, and you give it one parameter, which is discount. And another method is just display product name. So I think the concept of method, it's not new, because in the previous session also we did discuss the method. So class can have members or variables. Also class can have methods. All right. So how do you access the method from this class? Because now you can see there is no main class, right? So which means you might have another class which has main method. Okay, I said there's no main method, no main class. So if you have another class which has like a main method, you can now have instance of this class and be able to call those methods. So we see that in form of examples. So even for the method declaration, this is the signature. You can put like a access modifier, public, private, protected, whatever, and then you put return type like int, void, whatever, the name of the method and a list of parameters, and then within opening parentheses and closing parentheses, you can define the body of your method. So what you want your method to do. So in this case, if you have this class called the cycle, we have a constant variable which is PI 3.14. Also we have a radius, so we can have a method to calculate perimeter of the cycle, which is radius times 2 times PI. So anytime when I make a call to this method, I pass no parameter, but it's going to calculate the perimeter and return. What does it return? It's going to return a double. So this is double value. So if you take a radius which is double times 2 times pi, so the results of this computation is also a double. So let's see. Wow, so we have something very new, because we did discuss methods, but we didn't discuss constructors before. So what is a constructor? A constructor looks like a method, but there is one difference. The constructor will have the same name as the class name, and the constructor will never have return type. So if you look at any class declaration and you find like a method which has the same name as a class name, that is actually constructor. And if you look at the signature of the constructor, there is no return type. There is no public void, no public int. It's a public student, something like that. So there is no no return type, and also it has the same name as the class name. So the constructors are very important because we use them when we create objects and we want to set some initial values. So by the time you create an object like a student, you need to initialize it with some values. So to be able to do that, you need a constructor. So so you set the initial values to the object fields and allocate the memory, and this memory will be returned back by what you call garbage collector. So the concept of garbage collection you should know from even from C programming. So after computation, your program, when it terminates, the memory which was allocated to this kind of object will be collected by the system itself through the use of garbage collector. And the process is known as garbage collection. So we have three types of constructors. One, we can have a constructor with no argument. We can have a constructor with some parameters or some arguments. Or if you don't specify any, we get what you call default constructor. So these constructors are very important to initialize the values of your object and get some memory allocated for those objects. So we'll see this in example, and you can see here we have a class called a student, and we have here what you can check. It looks like a method, but you remember, since this has the same name as the class name and there is no return type, this is a constructor. So there is no parameter, that's why we call it zero parameter constructor or non-argument constructor. So let's look at more examples. Now let's look at the parameterized constructor. Can have one or more parameters. So for example, now we have the same constructor here. It's a constructor because they have the same name as the class name, and we are passing just one parameter. So we are passing the name of a student. Alright, so there is the name of a student, the value that we are passing here. When you pass this value, you want to assign this value to the member variable of your class. So that's why we have this here. This refers to this variable in this class. And you use this keyword because they have the same name. If they have a different name like x here, you can simply say name equal to x. But since they have the same name, you cannot say name equal to name. So we need to say this name, okay, the name of this class in this class equal to the value we are passing here. So you will see this in most of the programs where the constructors are used. And the default constructor, it's just provided by the compiler when you don't specify any constructor. So if you write a class and you don't initialize or you don't declare any constructor, by default the compiler will use what we call a default constructor, so which looks like this, a default constructor. So you write your program like this one, but the compiler will treat it as you can see here. So it has the default constructor. Alright, so look at this as your code and look at this as what the compiler has. So if you don't specify any constructor, the compiler will create the default constructor. Alright, so as we did discuss the concept of method overloading, also in terms of constructors, we can have what we call overloading constructors. What does it mean? You have more than one constructors inside the same class. So like this one, it's a constructor with no parameter, a constructor with one parameter. You can have another constructor with maybe two parameters. So the same logic, the concept of method overloading, it's similar to the concept of constructor overloading. So you have more than one constructor inside the same class. So we'll come to this when we do some more examples. Alright, so maybe before we start some examples, we can now discuss the class, because we've been discussing the constructor, which is, we've been discussing a class which is like a template for defining object. Now let's look at this. Let's look at the object. So what is object? So in simple words, object is just instance of a class. So which means what? Object is created from a class. So look at the example. If you have an object, if you have like a class called a student, in our previous example, class was a student. But when I refer to someone called John or someone called Aris, those are instances of my class. So my class served me as a template or blueprint for me to be able to define any student. So by setting the common properties, common methods, then I can customize, I can go with that template and populate it with the real students. So each student now becomes like an instance of my class. So how do we create object? So also we call it instantiation of my object. So you can see the keyword here, instantiate. So object instantiation or object creation. Object is created from a class by using new keyword. This is very important. So we use a new keyword to create instance of a class, and we follow this one with the constructor of my class. So let's look at this student. For example, this is our class. Okay, and we have one parameter which is a name. Now you can see you can have many classes in one program. So there is another class here, and this class it's going to contain the main method, which means what? Any execution of my program will start from this class, specifically inside main method. So to be able to use anything defined in this class, I need to create instance of that class. So that's why we see I'm declaring something of my class type, and I give it a simple name like S whatever. Then I make a call to the new keyword. I make a call to the constructor of my class. So you remember what we said? If there is no specified constructor, the compiler will create this as a default constructor. So now this S becomes like object of my class. So from this object of a class, I can give my student a name. So I can do a number of things. So we'll see this one. Okay, so creating, let's see what is there. Okay, yeah. Object creation and instantiation. Using object, you can reference the field inside the object class. This is what I was saying. So if you have like this, this variable, if you have an object, how can you access this variable? So here it's okay. We can go with the name because it is still inside the class. But if I go to another class, I need to use the instance of my class, no matter the name. In my previous example, we gave it a name as S. So I will go with S dot, then I make a call to the name. So maybe you can see that here. That's what we mean here. So we go with object reference dot field name. So this is what I'm saying here. So if I needed to give a name to this variable in this class, this is how I go about it. Instance, also known as object reference dot the property name. Then I can give a value. So I'm putting a Mokiza in this variable here. So we come back to this one when you do some more examples. Okay, so inside the method, I think it's straightforward. As we have seen, you can simply use the name of variable. So like here, this discounted applies, then discounted applies, but it's because it is within the same class. So we are still inside the product class, okay? We are still inside the product class. If it was in another class, we will go with the previous example. So yeah, this is what you call actually referencing it to your object outside object class. So that means in another class. This is another class. This is our first class. So if I needed to make a call to any method, like a calculate price, for example, so I needed to have an instance of my product class. Then from that instance, I can access the method, okay, which is calculate price, and I give, of course, one parameter, which is double. So this is 0.5. It's one parameter I'm passing here. Okay. So how do you invoke the constructor? Because we said you can have your own declared constructors, but also you can have the default constructor, the one created by the compiler. So in case you have created your constructors, or even the default constructor, you can call those constructors, or you can invoke them, of course, the same way as we are creating the object of our class. So this is the syntax. So anything you do from P, if it is anything from this class, because this class will be referenced as P here. So anything you can do from here. So invoking a constructor with some parameters. Yes, since our constructor takes one parameter, when you do so, you make sure you pass the parameter. So this is where we said you can initialize. So this means now, by the time you create instance of your class, product class, you initialize the price as well. So the price in that class will be set to 1,500. So the same here, we have more than one parameters. So we have a name and the price. So when we invoke our constructor, we pass two values. The first value will go into name, and the second value will go into the price. All right. So you can even have array of objects. So array of objects, what does it mean? Like you have a class called the student, for example, or called the book. So you can have a collection of books. So if I do this one, I'm creating two instances of the books. If you try to mimic this to the previous example, you can try to create like two students at the same time. So now you can see some will be with 0, other will be with 1. So with 0, this is the first instance, the first book, which is Java. With index 1, that means the second book, and you pass the value, which is web design. By the way, we should have a constructor here which takes one parameter. So here we are just giving an example, but we didn't show the complete definition for book class. So then there is a method inside that class. There is a method called info, and when you call info, that will be for the first book. If you call this info, that will be for the second book. So I think we can it's too much so far. I think we can go and do some examples. Maybe we come back to those three slides later on. So far, before we do some more examples to demonstrate the concept, do you have any questions so far? So we always give us like a 30 seconds. If there is no question, then we continue. Any question, please?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes, go ahead, please. Just wait. Just wait. We can't hear you. Too much noise. Too much noise, please. Try to check if no one is making a noise around you.
can hear me? Is it? Hello? You can hear me now?
We can hear you, but you have too much background
I
noise.
was asked. Okay. Okay, I can type the question.
Probably you have two devices. You have two devices.
I think it's the problem of network.
Okay, now go ahead, please.
Okay. I was asking what's the objective of invoking constructor?
So we said it from the beginning. Maybe you want to initialize the members of your class. All right? So you have a class and this class has some members. So you need to provide initial values to the members of your class. So the only way to do that is by invoking the constructor, because from the constructor you can pass the values in the form of what you call the parameterized constructors. So the second way, when you have like methods in your constructors, when you have like methods in your class, and those methods are not static, so definitely to be able to access to those methods, you need to have like an instance of your class. So by then, if you have no values, still there is a default constructor which does not take any parameter. So you can use that default constructor as well. So it's mainly for initialization and accessing the members of the class. Members means what? Method or properties.
I have another question.
Yes, please go ahead.
My question is that on that keyword this, I don't understand how come the same name is using to assign its name again. I don't know how does it work.
You can use different names. You can use different names, but many people will use the same name. So if they use the same name, this keyword is very important to be able to differentiate the variable of the class and the parameter of the constructor. But when you use different names, you don't have to use this keyword.
So which one is the variable parameter and the variable of the class?
Come again, please.
How can you determine the variable of the class and the variable of the method?
Don't you see here? These are the variables of my class, okay?
Yes, I can see.
But these are the parameters to my constructor.
So
I think it's very
here we
clear.
have here we have this dot name equal to name. So
okay, the first one means okay, good. The first one means the class variables. And of course, you are assigning the values. When you are assigning the value, what happens? This value I'm getting, which is here, I'm putting it in this one, which means this one as well. Okay?
Okay.
So I think it's clear now. So let's go for some examples. Now, as we said, let's have a class like a student class. And with this class, we can have a number of things like int age of a student. We can have a string first name of a student. We can have a string last name of a student. We can have even something like float. So let's do max, for example. So this is my class, and as we said, you can have a method, a simple method like void show details. For example, I'm passing no parameter, and within this method, I can simply say system out print line hello. Okay, maybe we can do this. Name is, so let's put the name and the f name. What next? Maybe we put age, and we put age. So now you can see this is my class, and this class doesn't have any constructor. Okay, There is no constructor, just one method, which is show details. And we finish our class here. And there is no main method in this class. So I can have another class, like a class student demo. And this class will have a main method. This class will have a main method, public static void main string, and pass some parameters. Alright, so if you remember well now, you cannot access this method here because we don't know. It's in a different class, okay? So only way to be able to access this method, we need to create instance of this object. I mean, we need to create instance of this class. Okay? So how we go about it? So we go with a student s, for example, new student. Then I can reference to that object through this object, something like this one. So now is this one understandable? Because you can have this class in the same file, or it can be in different file. And how do you save it? You save it using this name, because this is our main class. This is our main class. So then let's save this one. Let's save this one where so this is now either Sunday or Wednesday, so we are just one group. Okay, so let me go to Sunday because we're on Sunday. Okay, I just choose all. I use the same name, .java, and then I simply save it. So now let's go to the command prompt and see if we can execute this one. cmd Alright, so I think you can see. Okay, so let's go to users. Yeah, let's go to 2507, right? Now we need to go, let's see, directory, cd, we are in users, 25, I think there is a user like this one, yeah. So then we go to the desktop, sorry, cd desktop, then we go to Auka, then we go to, I think it's a Sunday or open, something like that. Good. So okay, where is our program? Our program name is, I think it's a student demo, by the way. All right, so we needed to find out where is the name of the file. Should be student demo. Yeah, the first one, you can see the first one created today. So now let's compile as usual. But we may need to minimize the size of the font. It's too big. So maybe let's try to minimize this one. We are using a very big one, and I think you can see. Okay, properties. Oh, 72. It's too big. We can make it like a 24. All right. So now if we show what we have over here, you can see that we have our class. It's the first one. This is our class. All right. So now let's compile it. Student demo.java. Okay. So yes, we're done with the compilation. And now let's execute our program and see what happens. Student demo. So now you can see name is, there is no name, and the age, it's 0. Why is it 0? So you see, we did not initialize those variables. Okay, but if you want to initialize those variables, you can still, as we said, you can do anything using the instance of your class. So if you say s, you'll be able to see first name, for example, and give a name like Alois, for example. Also, you can be able to give like age, maybe something like a 34. And then let's go back and compile our program. Alright, so now let's check the output from our program. So now you can see the name is Alois and age is 34. So I think now you can understand what we mean. So now let's make one quick example, and then we put some constructors. So I make it like a student demo number 2. Student demo number 2. I save it, and this is demo number 2. So what we do, we need to have some constructor. So when you have a constructor, remember we do like this one, the name of the class. And if you do this, this is the default constructor, there is no value. So you can go and do also student, and probably pass like age, pass even first name. So a constructor with the 2 arguments. So since they have the same name as the class variables, that's where we do like this age equal to age, and you do this f name equal to f name. So also we can have another constructor, student int age, string f name, string last name, and we have like a float max. And when we do this, since they have the same name as our class, since the parameters have the same name as our class variables, we use this keyword, this f name equal f name, and then this l name equal to l name, then this max equal to max. So now the concept of constructor overloading, you can see how many constructors we have. We have 3 constructors, one with no parameter, another with 2 parameters, and another with 4 parameters. So if I make a call to my class, for example, and I do something like this one, I'm referring to the first the first constructor, the one with no parameter. But guess what? Now let me copy this. Let me copy this again. I do copy, and okay, so I put some marker here, maybe system out print line. I'm going to call another constructor. So if I do this again here, but now I give you some values. Okay, what are the values? Name, and let's check again. It's age and name. So if I give something like a 25, and then set, for example. So what does it mean? Automatically age will be 25 and the name will be unset. So you will see this one here. So we can test it again, you can see. So let's save this one and let's compile it again here. So remember now this is demo 2. Alright. Oh, variable s is already defined. Oh, no, we can use different variable here. So we are using s, which was declared again. Maybe we can do maybe S1, but here also we make sure we are calling S1. All right, so let's compile again and see. So it's compiling. Now let's see the output. So now you can see. All right. Oh, sorry, by the way. So in the second constructor, we still have the output from the first constructor. How about the second constructor here? So the second constructor, because the value was stored here, was displayed, but we should be able to call it again. S1 dot show details. All right, so here it's okay. What about for S1? So now we can understand more how this one works. Maybe we needed to, okay, 25 and anisette. So but we are calling this one, should be called twice. Okay, new student, S1 is show details. So did we compile? Let's, okay, maybe for better illustration, let's do this because we are just demonstrating the concept. Let's comment this one out. Sorry, this is a comment. And oh, by the way, I think we didn't save because we didn't even see this one displayed. So let's check again and see what happens. We need to compile. Okay, now I can see. You guys, you should let me know. So I was just compiling the second program, but I ran the first program. So there's no need to put a comment here. By the way, let me remove my comment. So I think we're just referencing to another class, the first program, not the second one. So like here, then when we go to this one, we remember to put 2. So now you can see the first one, it's okay with the values we gave, and the second one with the value that we have over there. So some people will be just willing to write this one. Remember our program is student demo2.java. So this is our program. So if you look at this stuff here, so you can see that the second call to our show details method will bring the values that you passed in the constructor, so which makes a call to the second constructor, which invokes the keyword invoke, which invokes the second constructor. So if you pass like 4 parameters in the same order, like age, name, age, first name, last name, and max, so you'll be initializing all the members of this class. So we can do that as well if you wanna see what happens. So let's make another call, and what I can do is simply copy this one. I copy this one and I will paste it. I will paste it like this. So I'm calling now the one with 4 parameters. Anisette, something like this, and the max, we put the max like 14.5, something like this. So for float, I think you remember we put something like F. So now in our show, okay, let's say show details. Okay, then we can have another method which print all the details. Void show all details. So we don't simply show the first name, we show everything. System out print line name. Okay, first name is, so we do put f name, system out, print line last name is, we put last name, system out, print line age, we put age, system out, print line max, we put max. So if we make a call to this method, show all details, we can call it for this instance because it's where we have all the values, show all details. So now we will see, by the time we do this, all of these members will get initialized. So now let's save and come and compile again. Compilation, then we execute our program. So now you can see. So when you call the last method, you get all the values. The first name is, and it said the last name is billing, age is 25, max is 14.5. So I think now this is very clear. So now, so any questions so far, guys? All right, so if no question, please let's take like let's take a 5 minutes break, because we finished by 10, by the way. So take 7 minutes break, we come again for 30 minutes, and then we'll let you know.
It's complicated stuff.
What is complicated, my friend? To take a break? So you mean the topic?
Yes, the topic.
No, the topic is not complicated. It's because it's your first time. So once we finish our class, let's stay up maybe for other 3-4 hours. We go to bed after having a good understanding. They're not very complicated. It's a new topic. So you haven't seen this in C. That's why you may feel it's complicated. But I'm telling you this is very simple. So it's just a matter of time. You agree? So
Yes, sir.
yeah, so take a few minutes break. We come back after like 6 to 7 minutes. Then we cover other 30 minutes. So we can pause our record. Let's wait a bit. All right. So I think you have seen from this example very good and a bit complicated example, whereby you can have like a array of objects. So I think we can focus on more examples like this one, because those kind of examples are very, very important. So now let's go with example number, probably number what? Number 3. Yeah, call it number 3. So this is a third example today. Remember to change also here. All right, so this is number 3. So now, if you have like many students, maybe we can remove other constructors, because my interest here is in how you can manipulate a list of objects. So let's remove other methods. and we remain with one constructor. Okay, by the way, this is very important. So if you define any constructors on your own, the constructor with zero parameter must be there as well. So now I keep two constructors. So please, other members, please try to mute your mic because it's creating too much noise. So you have like one constructor here and this constructor. So anytime when you define your own constructor, also this one should be there. If you don't define any constructor, even this one you can ignore. Compiler will define this one. But if you define any other constructor, you must also explicitly define this constructor. So we have these constructors and we can have one simple method. Let's say we call it a student info method. Student info method, I think naming can be like this one. So now let's say you are going to create a collection of students, a list of students, not just one student. So I don't need S2, I don't need okay, so I can remove this one. I can remove all other details like here. So what I do here, I make it as a array. So remember how we do something like this one. You can check the syntax. So I don't need parentheses, I need a square bracket to indicate how many instance of my students. So if I do like 5 or 6, so what does it mean? I'm creating 6 instances of a student class, and I can initialize each from s of 0. I can define a new student and give those parameters. How many? 4 values. I can do s1 and I do new student also. I put those parameters. We come back and put the parameters. s2 new student. I can do s3 new student. I can do s4 do new student. I can see s5. I can say new student. So for each, you need to define those 4 parameters. You remember what is the first age, like 12 Aris, and the max maybe 18.0f. So you do the same. You define the max for you define all those 4 values for every student. Something like this, but you need to edit because we can't have the same values. All right, so we can make a simple edit, and for the sake of time, maybe this is 13, this is 14, this is 15, this is 16, and this is 17. Do you want to change those names as well? Maybe Aris1, sorry, Aris1, Aris2, Aris3, Aris4, and Aris5. Alright, so about the max, maybe 17, maybe 17.5, maybe 19, 19.5, and 18.2, something like that. So you can change even this one. Anna. Okay. Ariette. Ariane. Okay, Aria. Harris. Okay. So now you see we have like 60 students. Now if you want to make a call to any of those methods, so you can see now if I do like s of 0, then method call the student info. So now you understand what I'm going to get. So I'm making a call to this method here, and it's gonna use the values that we have here. So if you want to do for another class, I mean another list, you can go for S1. You can do the same for S2. You can do the same for S3, S4, S5. So we can do that. S3, then 4, then 5. So now you see this. Let's try to run this one and see. It's our third program. So let's come here. We compiled this program number 3. Okay, we have so many errors. What's that? All right. So and it close the character retail. So we should not use a single quote. We should be using double quotes. Oh my God. So it's okay when you use editor. You can have one option to replace, find and replace. I think let's see, find, replace. So what are we replacing? Single quote by double quote. So find and replace. So we do start from here. Find the next, yes, replace. Just replacing. Okay. All right. So we're done. So now let's go back and compile. Okay. So now we have we misspelled the class. Should not be student. Should be student. So where is that? What is that? 14 Arisa 2. Yeah, it's here. Student. So we should have an E here and we not here. All right, so let's go back and see. Now, yeah, we have no issue. So let's run the program and see. So now you can see, so we are making a call. The first one ends here. This is the second one. This is the third. So you can see all of them, 6 students. So this is one way you can do it, but let's see. The other simple way probably if exists, how you can make it. Okay, now let's make it 4. I put 4 like this one. So how about looping? Can you loop? Yes, you have like a 460 classes. You can try. You remember this concept we did, simplified the loop. So for what? Let's say student X in S, because our array name is S. Okay, so this is the loop that we used last time. So inside the loop, so each student will be referred to as what? As X. So I can do X dot show. What is that? What is the method name? It's student info. X student info, something like this. So I think it's another simple way if you remember how we use the loops. And this is gonna be example number 4. Let's save it and see how it compiles. While it's compiling, now let's go. So you can see the same. So I think it's a matter of understanding the concept, because you don't have to change a lot of things from one concept to another concept. All right, so I think we can keep this one. This should be enough. So next time we can see even how you get this element sorted. We can see how simply you can sort this element. Maybe you want to sort by the edge or the max. We can do that next time. So maybe before we end the session, I want to show you next time when you come, you need to have like Eclipse installed. I think people will like Eclipse on NetBeans, so I don't care any editor you can use. But once you have it installed, it makes the process much easier. You can write the code easily. You can compile. Yes, yes, Cedric.
Hi, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, for example, as you are inserting element into the array,
Yes.
you are starting from element at index 0, 1 up to 5.
Yes.
If you don't insert at the index 4, you just skip the index 4.
That's
What
fine.
will
That's fine. The index 4 means you have enough values. So why not? Let's do like this one. This is a comment, right?
yeah.
So the values will be the default values, which are null or 0. So it's null for the number, null for the string, and 0 for numbers. So now let's compile again and see what happens. So you see it's compiling, and when you run the program, you see what happens. For this is a fourth element, by the way, because it has a null pointer exception. So the reason is because of that loop. If you're not using the loop, like if you go with the previous way, it will be okay, but it will show the null values. All right. So
Yes.
maybe, yeah, you can try it. You will see. That's the point. Okay, now I'm talking about the IDE, like Eclipse. This is integrate. We call it actually integrated development environment. And when you write a program here, it's much easier to figure out the errors. Compilation, it becomes easier. Everything becomes straightforward. So people will like maybe NetBeans, others will like Eclipse. But to me, I think Eclipse is okay because it's the right weight. It doesn't take too much resources in your computer, and it does the purpose. So if you look at, for example, let's say I need to write a program like here. Let's say, for example, look at this simple program. It's opening, by the way, because it was not running before. So you look, when you write a program, you can easily recognize something which is wrong. So those coloring, whatever, it becomes much easier. So this is some previous sessions, previous class, where we did interfaces, where we did should not be this one probably. Let me check, maybe this one. Default package. Yeah. So when you look at how the code looks like, it's much easier for you to understand the code. And we'll be running all this style when we talk about the iterations. Okay. So like this kind of loop I was using, it's like this one. It's this loop. So we can have other many loops. So using IDE will make your life easier. So I think next time I can give you a bonus, not to keep using command line interface, but having IDE, and you start running your programs from IDE. You see the concept of packages. We come to this next time, but you can see if I'm using any class, like here I have a dog session, and here I have animal. So if I needed to use animal in this class, for example, you can see what happens. I needed to import the other folder, which is interface, and the name of whatever the file, which is animal. So it becomes much easier to manage your program. We did not want you to use this one from the beginning, but I hope maybe from next week, because we can have like a class twice a week, maybe like a Sunday evening and Wednesday evening. I'm hoping to finish my syllabus by mid-August. So, and you still have a lot to read. So let me share with you some more. I think you have the links, by the way, the links we started with. So let me